Amazing morning, everybody. I am Lucel Anmingilian from Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management, Section TM1C. And today I'm going to discuss the Human Acts and Moral Accountability, Lesson 4 of Unit 1. So make sure to finish this video because at the end of this, you could be able to differentiate human acts and acts of man and cite example of it, and identify and explain major determinants of the morality of human acts, and explain and evaluate the principles governing each modifier of human acts. When studying ethics, it is a must for us to know the difference between acts of man and human acts. We have to discern from the other because the moral accountability of the human person lies in it. It is when human person is responsible for his or her actions that's the only time that we can say that human person does a human act. And now we're going to differentiate human acts from acts of man. What is human act? Human act is an act which proceeds from the deliberate free will of man. In ethics, the term deliberate means merely advertence or knowledge in the intellect of what one is about and what this means. The act then has to be advertently or knowingly done by the agent so that it could be called the human act. So why human acts? Human acts reveals the value of responsibility or accountability. Man and woman takes into responsibility of these actions. Human acts is an act that we do with the use of free will and intellect. They are done freely, deliberately, and voluntarily. These are actions that are proper to humans, thus the crucial element of willful consent and knowledge of the action must be present. For example, studying, working, eating healthy foods. There are three elements to be considered as human act. The first one is knowledge. Knowledge means that the act is done in the light of the agent's knowing faculty. He is aware and conscious of what he is doing. He knows what the performance of his act. Human acts must be known and deliberate. An individual, as the moral agent, has full knowledge of doing a certain action. There is a prior knowledge and a deliberate evaluation of whether to fulfill an action or not. Ibig sabihin, kailangan alam mo kung anong maitutulong mo at para saan ang pagtulong mo. Then we have the second one, which is the freedom. Freedom means that the act is performed in accordance with and not against the will. It is under the control of the will determining the action. In other words, the power resides in the will to choose to do or not to do an act. It is therefore a free act done without any element of force or coercion. He or she is free to do the act without the influence of an outside factor and personal pressure from within. He or she does the act so independently and not because of shame, request, or control from someone else nor from emotional disturbance. Then we have the last one. The last one is the voluntariness. This means that the act is done by agent in an intentional way. When he voluntarily performs an act, the agent intends it as a product of his decision which is within the power of his will. In other words, a voluntary act is a willed act, an act that is willingly done. It proceeds from the employment of knowledge and freedom, and the agent cannot be voluntarily do an act if he does not know it is not his intellect. He also cannot voluntarily do it without his freedom. Voluntariness takes place only when knowledge and freedom is present.
The concept of voluntariness is extremely important in ethics because, first, as we just have explained, ethics deals precisely with the study of human acts. And second, it is the amount or degree of voluntariness present in an act which determines the amount or degree or responsibility, and this in turn will determine the amount of punishments.
Voluntariness can be distinguished between perfect voluntariness and imperfect voluntariness. Perfect voluntariness is full of knowledge and full of consent, and imperfect voluntariness, there is no perfect knowledge nor consent. We also distinguished between direct voluntary act and indirect voluntary act. Voluntary act is when the act is intended for its own sake, either means or as an end. And indirect voluntary act, an act which is not intended for its own sake but which is merely follows as a regrettable consequence of an action directly willed. On the other hand, acts of man is an act that does not proceed from the deliberate free will of man. In contrast with the human act, acts of man do not require the employment of the rational faculties of intellect and free will. Acts that we do without free will and intellect, some are done by instinct. The actions are performed without conscious deliberation or knowledge and with the absence of free will. Acts of man constitute unconsciousness and involuntary actions. For example, breathing, digestion, circulation of the air in the body. These are natural processes within the body that continue to function without the use of free will and reason. They just happen naturally, automatic responses to the situation.
Unlike human acts, in acts of man, there is no elements of knowledge, there's no elements of freedom, and there's no elements of voluntariness.
So these are the determinants of the morality of an act. The first one is the act itself. This refers to the deed done or performed. It is technically called the object or nature of the act. It is primary determinant of morality. And the following are the morality under the act itself. First is the intrinsic morality. This pertains to the fact that there is an act which is in itself, capable or not, of being ordered to the dictates of the right reason, human nature, and God's internal law. The goodness or the evil resides in the act itself. Then the second one is the intrinsically good act. It is an act whose goodness proceeds from its very nature, capable of being ordered to the good and to the ultimate end, which is God. Apart from two other determinants of morality, it is good as it is in itself. The third one is the intrinsically evil act. It is an act which evil proceeds from its very nature, incapable of being ordered to the nature of the human person and God. It is the evil.
The second one is the motive of the agent. This refers to the end, purpose, or goal to be achieved by means of the act. It is done. In short, it is the intention of the agent in performing the act. The third one is the circumstances. This refers to the condition in which the act is done, affecting its morality in one way or another. They exist outside of the nature of the act and are not of the essence of the act. However, if they arise in the execution of an act, their circumstances can indeed equalify. And these are the 5 circumstances. The first circumstances is by person. This refers to the agent performing the act or to the person to whom the act is done. The second circumstances is the quantity or quality of act. This refers to what is the extent of the act. The third one is the circumstances of place. This refers to the venue where the act is performed. And the fourth circumstances is by means or instrument. This refers to that which is used and employed in the performance of an act. It is deemed associated with the act in its performance. And the last one is the circumstances of manner. This refers to the condition in which the act is done or how it is performed by the agent.
And that's the end of our discussion. I hope that you have learned something, and thank you for watching.